a light bulb goes out, those small things. Obviously, if the boiler goes, then that's a big expense which the landlord will have to pay for, and that's something they'll be responsible for. But when it comes to all the smaller stuff, you can take care of that. Because see, from a landlord's point of view, one of the biggest hassles is those small minor maintenance and the management of the property. If you can say to them, though, you'll take care of all the minor stuff, you'll take all the hassle away essentially, because you're getting long-term rent, they're getting paid on time, is well kept, and you also do the minor maintenance, then essentially you're reducing the hassle for them. And that's really all the benefits there are, for them. And again, even though the list is only about 4 bullet points, if you can take away a landlord's hassle and have a good long-term tenant, that's really all they want. They get their monthly cash flow, that's pretty much all they're looking for. The reason I say higher cash flow as the last point is, if you're doing management, obviously if you're doing rent to rent, they just get the rent. If you're doing management, then they might possibly also make a lot more money in the process. If you've done your numbers right, they should be making a lot more money in the process. So now they've got less hassle, property is well maintained, and they're also making more money without them doing anything. Because see, typically, when you're dealing with the landlord is trying to save some money by not going to a letting agent. That's essentially what's happening. They're trying to save that 10%. Well, in this case, they're saving the 10%, but rather than them doing the management, you're doing the management. So there's like an additional benefit in that. And they're trying to save money, but now you're making them extra money on top because you're running the property as service accommodation. So, those are the benefits to landlords. These are the benefits to letting agents. The first one is repeat business. The reason I like letting agents more than landlords is because, see, if you can think about it this way, I'm not against pitching to landlords. I think pitching to landlords is fine. A lot of people do it. But now let's say you pitch to 5 landlords, right? Could be 5, could be 50, whatever. If you pitch to 5 landlords and out of the 5, one of them says, yeah, cool, I like the model, let's go on with it, blah, 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 then how many deals do you have? You got the one deal, right? If you're with an agent and you pitch to 5 agents and one of them says, cool, the rest say no, 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 it's like, how many deals do you have now? 10, 20, 30, however properties he has. Because once an agent is on board with an idea, the next time round, you don't have to pitch the agent again. They already know how the model works, they already know you, so on and so on, that getting another one is far easier. I've had agents who literally, because you got to think about it from this point of view. Imagine here's a building, right? Apartment block, big apartment block, and you've got this flat here. Another flat comes available. So in this building, this flat here comes available. If you have this relationship with an agent and you're paying the rent on time and you're doing everything like you said, when this flat comes available, who's the first person who's going to send it to you? He's going to email you straight away because, see, he knows you've already got this one. Same block, same spec, you might be interested. But if he did 10 viewings with 10 different families, one might say, kitchen's facing the wrong way, bedroom's too small, bedroom's too big, kitchen's too small, so on and so on. But if he knows you've got one down the hallway, then you might potentially be interested in this one. One viewing, the whole thing is done, rather than them doing 10 different viewings, showing all these people around. So repeat business for them is a massive one. Because again, from an agent's point of view, they don't want to do 10, 20 different viewings in order to let a property out, because it costs them time, it costs them money. So the biggest benefit for letting agents is repeat business. And I'll talk about how you communicate that and how you pitch that, but that is one of the big benefits. The second one is minor maintenance. Again, similar to letting agents, you can say you'll take care of all the small and minor maintenance. No letting agent wants to do all these small things here and there. No one wants to email, can you come and check this out? So if you say you'll do the minor maintenance, then again, it's better for them. It's better from them from that point of view. And the last one is no issues with tenants. So again, like I said, if you're making the payments on time and you're doing what you said, when the new one comes available, then they're going to send you the details for the new one. It's pretty much how it works. I've had agents literally chasing me. I had a property which I agreed to take on. So I had one. So for example, I had this one here. This red one came available, and I said I'll take the red one. Then they sent me this second red one, and I said, well, I'll take the second red one because the second red one was better than this one. And so in their head, they thought I said I was going to take on both. But I switched from this one to this one, thinking, well, I only want one for the time being, and I'll switch to this one. And they sent me emails, like, almost complaining, arguing with me how I said I was going to take both. But the point of the story is that a lot of people think it's very, very hard to pitch agents and get these deals, or they might not give me another one. But you've got to realize from their point of view, they've done one viewing or like one visit, and they can rent 2 properties out. With families, you've got to show them like 10 times. The husband might view, then he might say, well, I'm going to come back with my wife. And, that's essentially how it goes. That's essentially how it works with letting agents. That people want to do multiple viewings, so on and so on. But if they can rent out 2 properties in one viewing, then easy money for them. Easy, easy money. So, like I said, I don't have a problem with direct to landlords. I just think getting one agent on board is a much better use of your time. Because once you've got one agent, you never have to worry about how am I going to get another deal. With landlords, you now got to find 10 more landlords, do your 10 pitches again, and so on and so on and so on. With an agent, you get one agent on board, and once you've got the first one, that's it. You're done. In that area, you're done. Now it's a case of let's go to a different area. And again, if you have some of these branches, so we were dealing with a branch, I can't remember the name. They had a branch, and we were working with them. And then obviously a lot of these are like franchises, right? So that person knew someone else from another branch in a different town, and we said we were looking at apartments in that town, and he basically spoke to him, he connected us, we had a chat, and he was cool with it because he knew someone else he knew that we were working with another franchise in a different area. So, those are some of the benefits of working with agents. But if you do the landlord stuff, it's cool. If you get some deals, that's cool. But I just prefer this. Does that make sense? Okay, pitching to letting agents. So this is important. The first one I say is new agents. I just feel some of the newer agents are less stringent. There's less requirements. There's less loopholes or hurdles, whatever you want to call it. Whereas when you have some of the traditional ones like Foxtons, they want to go through all these details, and they ask you 100 questions and 100 forms and so on and so on. Whereas I've just found that the newer agents are typically a lot more receptive to a lot of this compared to some of the old traditional ones. So that's one thing to consider. The second one is high supply areas. What I mean is, if you're in an area where there's like some new build developments and there's a lot of rental flats coming on at one point, it makes it much, much easier to get a deal. Because the letting agent probably has 30 on his books, 30 of the same apartments. So if you ask for, if you're trying to rent some of those, obviously it makes their life easier as well because they've got 30 on their books. If you're in an area where there's only one apartment comes up every 3 months and there's 100 families lined up, that's a hard pitch because it's pretty much always going to go to the family. Because there's nothing in it for the letting agent. They've only got one. They know how it works with the families. It's a straightforward process, and it's pretty much always going to go to the family, I think. Whereas if you're in an area where there's 50 apartments on the guy's books and he has targets and he has to rent those 50 out, then it's far easier. The pitch is far, you can mumble your way into it. It's just far, far easier. So, something to consider when you're finding your area, that cool, the numbers work, but are there even any deals here that I could possibly take on? If one comes up every 3 months, then not the best area from that point of view. Something to consider. Don't discount first deal. What that means is, for the first deal, if the market rent is £1,300, just pay £1,300, as long as your numbers work. Don't try to squeeze it down to £1,250 or £1,240 because you're trying to get a bit of a discount. Because the first one, you're really just trying to get through the door. That's what you're trying to do with the first one. You're just trying to build that connection, just trying to get into the door so you have future deals. Now, once you've got the first one, with the future ones, you can negotiate, you can say, well, if I take on 2 more, can I have... Once we had one landlord through a letting agent, the letting agent said he owns number 28 and 29. So if you take on both, then maybe we can work something out. And we got a bit of a discount because we took 2. So again, those things you can do, but I just feel like it's much, much safer if you do that, not for the first one, but for the ones down the line. Future pace. What that means is, when you're speaking to an agent, one of the things you want to do is you want to say that you're interested in 4 or 5 properties, as opposed to just 1. Because see, even in your profession or whatever you do, if you have a set way of doing something, and someone comes along, or like a set procedure, set paperwork, set model, and someone comes along and they say, well, you know, I want to do something different. Now, even though the different thing might be fine, if someone's only going to do it once, it might just be too much hassle, too much effort for you to put your mind to it because, well, I've got 50 other families lined up who just do it the normal way. I know how that works. I'll just do it that way. You know what I mean? It might just be too much hassle for you to do this one-off thing, whereas you can just do your normal routine stuff and you're going to make the same money anyway. But what I found is when you say to letting agents how you're interested in 4 or 5 properties, now to them it's like multiple commissions, right? You're going to be more incentivized to do something if you make 5 times the amount of money compared to just a one-off here or there. Because a one-off here or there, you got to work out, well, how does this work? You got to ask questions. But that might be worthwhile if you're going to let 5 properties. Does that sort of make sense? So I've always said I'm looking for 4, 5, 6 properties because from their point of view, they're thinking, well, I'm going to make 5, 6 commissions here. So it's a bit more worthwhile listening compared to just a one-off deal. So that's what I mean by future pace. That's one of the things you have to say. This could be on the phone, could be in person. Next one is memorize big employers. The way I do service accommodation, I mainly try to focus on the longer term corporate bookings like I'm going to mention in the marketing section later. And my play really is to get as many long-term company bookings. So what I tend to do is I tend to memorize the big employers' names in the area, and when I'm speaking to the letting agents, I say, these are the type of clients that we're going to be hosting in our apartments, blah, blah, blah. Because I want to make the pitch very, very professional. I don't want to make it sound like some touristy one-night thing. You want to keep it as professional as possible because from a letting agent's point of view, no one really likes the idea of people coming in for one night or tourists coming in for one night. So if you can try and make it as professional as possible, saying, we're looking to work with GSK, Fujitsu, and Tesco because their clients, come for a few weeks to a few months at a time when they're looking for accommodation. That sounds a lot better than saying, I'm going to put this on AirBNB, which doesn't sound very professional at all. So that's something to note, which is memorize some of the bigger employers and work the bigger employers into your pitch, because that's where your marketing is going to be focused anyway when we get into the marketing section, that you're going to be trying to get those people into your marketing, into your apartments. And the last one says, don't pitch on the phone. The reason I say this is, do you guys ever watch a movie on your phone, laptop, or Netflix? Could you all agree? Does everyone do that, right? Now, here's my question. If you're watching a movie on your TV, laptop, or Netflix, and you're 10 minutes into the movie and the movie sucks, what do you normally do? Turn it off, right? Now, let's imagine you make a plan with your friends or your family. You make a plan, you get in your car, you drive to the cinema, you park up, you get the popcorn, whatever, and you sit down in the movie theater, and you're 10 minutes into the same movie and the movie sucks. What do you do now?
Sit through it.
You just sit down and you just watch the whole thing. I've sat down, I watch a lot of Bollywood movies and they go on for 3 hours. And that shit, for 3 hours, it kills you. But you just sit down and you just watch it. And Bollywood movies even have an intermission. So you could even leave halfway technically, but it's like you don't. Because you're like, I'm here now, right? It's like I'm here now, so I might as well watch it. But that's basically what happens, which is, it's weird because on your phone, you turn it off. But at the cinema, you don't just leave. You're like, I'm here now, I might as well watch it. When you pitch on the phone, and the agent picks up the phone and they don't really get the hang of what you're trying to say, they say, let me speak to my manager, I'll speak to the landlord won't like it, and they put it down. Because think about it, there's no time invested. There is no time invested. 1 minute maybe. 1 minute, and that's all the time they've invested, and they put it down because they're like, we don't do this. If you can book a viewing first, right? They got to print the brochures. They got to put their jacket on, drive to the property, park up, show you around, show you all the stuff. They might be 45 minutes, 50 minutes in. If you then start your pitch, they have to at least listen to you. They don't just say no within 3 seconds, or no, landlord's going to say no. I'm not saying it means you're going to get 100% of your deals, but what I can assure you is the percentage goes up significantly. 100%. 100%. Because the point is, there is nothing invested in the phone. If you mess up one line and they don't like what you're trying to say, they don't have to go through with it. They've got other families lined up, so on and so on. But once you get people that are viewing, they're willing to listen. They'll listen a lot more than they will on the phone. And it just goes back to being invested. Anything in life, the more you're invested in something, the more you want a result out of that thing. Think about it, you know, like relationships, all that sort of stuff. The more you're invested in something, the more you have to get a result. On the phone, you're not invested. Someone called you for 30 seconds, you didn't like it, you just put it down. But 45 minutes in, 50 minutes in, you know, you can even take this a step further. You can maybe view 4 properties, walk around with them for a bit. You might be 2 hours in before you start your pitch. The percentage goes up. Now, a lot of people try to argue with me and say, well, if I do this on the phone or if I email, I can reach more people, you know, because I can reach 50 agents in 1 hour. But if I do this in person, I can only reach 1 agent in 1 hour. But this is, you only have to get 1 agent. You're not trying to get 50 agents. And the success rate as a percentage goes up so much more. And if you're in a small town or a small area where there's only about 10 agents, you don't want to burn your leads because you can't keep going back to the same one again and again with now like a different pitch. You know, with a lot of them, you only get 1 go unless you get a different guy on the day and so on and so on. But if you're, you know, I live in Hertfordshire, there's only about 10 agents. Like, if you spend 2 days, you can probably speak to all of them in person. And that's probably worthwhile. I went to Paddington for 1 day. I'd never been to Paddington, never knew an agent in Paddington. 1 day, I booked about 15 viewings and I got 1 deal. And we took a 2-bedroom basement apartment in Paddington, 1 day. Whereas, I genuinely believe if I spend 1 hour and I've called 15 agents, I probably wouldn't have got a deal. I believe that.
You did not get a little bit upset though? You said, if you told me this before, I would have said to you, no, we can't view this property.
Okay.
We just don't do it at all.
Okay, so
That's a common response from.
It's a common question. Do you have a similar question?
Yeah, because when I find up agents,
yes,
you go through the whole like, I'm looking into this property. The first thing that may say to me, is it for a family?
Is it? Okay, I've never had is it for a family. I've had is it for yourself?
Yourself or family.
Yeah. And I say it is. Well, it is for me. Yeah, but I mean, it's a bit.
Tell them that it's for a company.
I don't say it's for a company.
Yeah, it's for me.
And I get this question a lot, which is, well, agents say to me, well, if you had told me before, blah, blah, blah. But I'm willing to guarantee you one thing. Every single letting agent in this country has 2 contracts. They have a normal AST contract for families and individuals, and they have company-led agreements.
They all do.
They all do. I've never seen one which doesn't. I've never seen a letting agent in this country which doesn't have some sort of company-led or corporate-led agreement.
There's so many that say that we don't do that.
But I don't think they know what that even, like maybe they don't know.
Maybe they don't understand.
But I've never come across a letting agent which hasn't had some sort of company-led, corporate-led, some sort of agreement. Because if company-leds are very common. Like, you know, because for example, you get a company and they say we're trying to house our 6 clients or whatever.
They're going to say no.
Yeah, they're very, very common company-leds. It's not some new thing. People in HMOs do this all the time. Go on.
What I've had is when you try to explain a company-led, they said, yeah, we have company-led, but it means that...
For your employees?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Okay, so again, let me go into this next step here, which is contracts with the agents. My thing is, you should not submit your own contracts to agents. You should use their contracts and amend it, as opposed to sending your own contracts. Because think about it, if you send your own contracts and it's 20 pages, they now have to read through 20 pages of what's in here. There's only really 2, 3 main things that you're already concerned about. One, are you allowed to do short lets? And second, who can stay at the property? A lot of the times it says employees. You have to email them and you have to say, we have to change the word employees to clients because we work with these companies and they're not our employees, they're our clients. It is far, far easier to get them to change one word from employees to clients than submitting a brand new deck of contract with 15, 20 pages with all these words littered everywhere.
Some of them have said to me on that point.
Yes.
It's a company let through a company and their employees. You or the landlord requires a specific, basically one. You got to tell us which employees are staying there. You can't.
Yeah. So okay. So some companies will say you have to let us know which employees are going to be staying there from different companies, and you have to submit their ID and so on, all that sort of stuff. I feel like I have come across it at some point a while ago, but again, it might be a case of going to a different agent, because again, if you're in an area and there's 10 agents, you're only trying to get one agent. So if you can't get through to someone, you simply just have to move on. But at the end, this is why I like to play with the agents, because all you're trying to do is get one in that town or in that city. You just want the one who says, yeah, we'll change it from employees to clients. And I've done that many times. Just get them to change one word. See, we're looking at two main things here. It should not be restricted to employees, and it should allow short lets. If a contract says minimum 99 lets, then obviously that's not really going to work for you, because you're going to be having people in there for a few nights at the least. At the minimum. Maximum. I don't know what that I don't know what that word is. But employees and short lets. Again, it says just some sort of disclaimer that you can always check with your solicitor, because I don't want to get sued by anyone. But check with your solicitor what's right. But the point is, short lets, employees, and it's far, far easier to have a contract amended than a brand new contract submitted. Far easier. And if you do those steps of get a viewing first, as opposed to pitching on the phone, you see some properties, you tell them a bit more about what you're doing, so on and so on. You tell them you're interested in 4 or 5 properties. You name some of the big employees and say, these are the people we're going to be working with, making it, the whole thing very, very professional. That has always worked for me. Now, like I said, the day I went to Paddington, I must have done about 15 viewings with maybe 9 agents, 8, 9 different agents. And I think a lot of it when it comes to pitching is just about how you pitch. It's not even about what you say. It's just how you come across in the pitch. If you come across as like, if you're a bit nervous or you're mumbling your way out of it and so on, then even they become a bit hesitant. But if you speak confidently about what you're doing and the sort of business you run, I've never had business cards. I've never sent them to our website. I've never worn some sort of shirt or with like some professional stuff or any of that. The first deal I took on, my company was registered like 7 days before we took the deal on. There was no email. There was no nothing, because I feel like if you just explain it and you follow the steps and you sort of like do it with a bit of confidence and you believe in what you're trying to do here, then you'll be okay. Whereas if you come across as you're unsure yourself, then it just comes across the way you speak, just the way you say stuff, and it just makes the whole thing slightly harder. So, but that's what I would say. Those are some guidelines which I would follow. And again, I'm saying don't pitch on the phone. And then people go in and pitch 20 agents on the phone, then they say, well, I haven't had any luck for X, Y, and Z reason, so on and so on. But again, I don't believe in pitching on the phone. I'm not saying it doesn't work, because people have pitched on the phone and they have got deals. With most things, there's always exceptions, and it's not black or white. There are gray areas, and some things work for some people, some things work for other people. Some people do cold calling, some people do email. Everything does work. But I just feel that by doing this in person and building, speaking to someone one-on-one and then seeing you face-to-face, so on and so on, just makes it much, much easier. Because you can build rapport much easier in person as well. It just makes the whole thing easier. The person is a lot more invested compared to just being on the phone. And I find the conversion is much, much higher from personal experience. And it's the same reason you don't leave the cinema, because you're so invested, you're like, I might as well stay. And it's the same play here, which is that the agent doesn't simply just get up and leave. They're willing to listen. And that's all you really want. They're not going to be like, okay, fine, done. But it's just, I'm talking about percentages here. You only need 1 out of all the agents in your town, and you're done. You're done. You've got all the leads. So that's how I would go on to acquire your service accommodation properties. So we've done 4 sections. We still have 5 to go. So we've got quite a bit. I guess we could have a lunch break now?
Can I just ask a question on
Yes,
agents?
yes.
So would you recommend booking an actual viewing and meeting the agent at the property? Or doing the pounding the streets and going in every agent in that area sort of thing and speaking?
Okay, so with agents, this is the process I would recommend. This is the process I would recommend for agents, right? In terms of finding a property and doing this whole process. The step one is find a property on Rightmove. That says Rightmove. So you find something on Rightmove that you're interested in. The second thing is you call and book a viewing. So you're gonna call and book a viewing. I don't want to
You don't tell them that you're from someone who just, I want to see it.
Yeah, I want to see this property. You want to say I want to see this property, and you have to get the viewing. you have to book a viewing. I don't go into the letting agent shops because again the problem is that they're not invested the same way because they haven't spent any time doing anything. They were at their desk. You came along. They said we don't do that. It's the same as the phone. The principle is the same as a phone. Number 3 is viewing. And number 4 is you pitch at the viewing. So find the property, call in, book a viewing for that property, do the viewing, and then pitch at the viewing. That is the process of how you would pitch to letting agents.
Generally at the end, after you've seen it all, yeah, very nice.
Yeah, you can.
And then say, oh, what we're looking for is for this.
Yeah, you can pitch at the end, or you can start to explain the concept while you're sort of viewing the property, so on and so on. But yeah, you would see the property first, and then you can pitch at the end.
What if they have a general response of, I don't understand? What you're saying don't make no sense. 'Cause that's what some of them will say. But
Well, if they're new, because a lot of you get the newbies who are doing the runaround, doing all the viewings.
That's
for
one of the
people.
reasons I asked.
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
they go and get
They don't even
Let's-
know what to do.
Okay, so the question is, what if they say, I don't understand what this means? Which actually happens to a lot of people, and I should have probably mentioned this in the slide, because here is the big killer word. Jargon, right? What that means is that if you say something to anyone in any industry, for example, if someone's an IT specialist, and I don't know, there's a thing called HDMI. If you talk about a HBMI or whatever, which basically means nothing to anyone, when they scan their head for a HBMI, that means nothing, right? It's blank. They know what a HDMI is. They have no idea what a HBMI is. It doesn't exist in their head. So now they're confused as to what the hell is a HBMI, because it makes no sense. Because see, what happens is people try to use all this complicated stuff because it makes them seem professional. They'll, look at me, I know all this stuff. But all it does is it confuses the other person. So you have to step them through whatever you're trying to explain. See, if you say to someone, oh, we do rent to rent, the first thing they're going to say is, oh, isn't that subletting? Because rent to rent implies subletting. Rent to rent. And they have no idea what that means. They don't know what service accommodation means. No idea. You go to most letting agents, you say, I'm going to do service accommodation. They have no idea what that means. So now already in their head, they're like, what the hell does that mean? Or rent to rent seems like a bit of a scam, or isn't that subletting? They know what company that means. They know what corporate that means. you have to use the information they know and play with that information. If you start saying stuff which means nothing to them, their head goes blank, the whole thing is too foreign, too scary, so on and so on. So the classic analogy in property is, if you're trying to do lease options, right? So if you're trying to explain lease options to an agent, it's a confusing process, because you're basically saying, I'm not going to buy this property using a mortgage. I'm going to pay the, I'm going to cover the seller's mortgage every single month, and then 5 years later I'll make one big off payment and I'll buy the house. That seems a bit messed up, because no one does that, right? That's not a normal process. But if you say to a letting agent, you know how you can buy cars on finance, where you just make a monthly payment and 5 years later you just pay the whole car off and you get the car? Everyone knows what that means. Everyone knows how finance works on a car. And then you relate that and say, well, that's basically what I'm trying to do with the property. At least they get it. Because they understand what's happening here. Yeah. So you can't use words like rent to rent or service accommodation. You have to use words they understand. And when you do your pitch, it has to be based on those words. And you will never get someone saying, I don't know what that means. Because it's just basic terminology. They all know what a company let is. They all know what a corporate let is. But you can't confuse them. So yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so the question is, if I'm correct, if you get a person at the viewing who's like someone who's not the manager, I suppose, how do you sort of pitch that? Well, you would still have to pitch the normal way, and they would have to communicate the message, and you would have to go from there. Now, I've had people like the junior viewing people and stuff. It's never really been a big issue. I mean, it might have been an issue for some people, I don't know, but it's never really been a big issue for me personally. So, but that's what you have to do. You would have to pitch to whoever comes to the viewing, and this is why when it comes to the pitch, it has to be as simple as possible, and it should not include stuff like this, because if you confuse the person at the viewing, who is just a messenger, it's kind of like Chinese whispers, that by the time the message goes round, by the time the last guy hears it, it's completely different to what the first guy said. So this is why it has to be so simple in the terminology that they understand, that even if it is someone who's like a new staff member or whatever, or a junior person, they can still go back and communicate that message. Does that make sense? Yeah. So any other questions on that?
But in your experience, when you get there and you're like, you haven't really had much feedback on, if you told me that before, I would have said to you, no, this landlord won't do company. We don't even do company lets as an agency. We just don't do it. If you told me before, I would have appreciated that and then not sort of come out and done this.
You get that a lot in London.
Okay, so
you'd get that quite a lot, you know.
So this is my take on this.
You take that approach of
this is my take on this when this is my take on when people say that, well, you know, the scenario you're presenting basically, that if you had told me before that this is what you were going to do, I wouldn't have shown it to you, blah blah blah. My take is every letting agent has two contracts, an AST and a company-led contract. So first of all, they do it. They might not know they do it, but I've never come across a letting agent which doesn't have a company-led agreement. I've not seen one yet. Maybe there is, but I've not seen one. So most of them do it. The second thing is, I'm not saying you're playing games, but if you try to buy a property in this country with any letting agent, and I've done this many times, you say to them, I'm looking for 2-bedroom ex-council flats. They will show you 7. 2 of them will be 2-bedroom ex-council flats. 5 will be private 1-bedroom flats and studios, right? Isn't that what they basically all do? Because their play is, well, let me hang out with them, let me show them basically everything we've got, so on and so on. They might buy something. So it's exactly the same thing. That when you do 7 viewings, they show you 2 you're interested in, and 5 you were never going to buy. Or they were like, let's just, you know, sneak one in on the way. Or they say, oh, we're going this way, I happen to have the keys, why don't we pop in and see it? So it's exactly the same thing. So, like, I'm not trying to, you know, play their game or whatever, but my view is they all have this agreement. If they don't do it, why did you have the agreement in the first place? Why did you have this piece of paper in your office which says company-led agreement if you don't do it? So I'm simply going by that. So, and if someone says to me, we don't do it, you should have told me before.
I assume that everyone does it because I know that everyone has a company-led agreement.
Yeah, you can say that. I assumed everyone does it since everyone has it. Or personally, I'm just not too fussed. I don't get offended easily. You can say whatever you want to me. I don't, I'm not too fussed from that point of view. I just want to do 20 viewings and I want to get one agent on board, because once that one agent is on board, you can get on with the next one. One thing which has worked weirdly, I don't even know how this happened. I can't remember. It just was a weird coincidence even. I went to Foxtons once and I can't remember why. Like, I don't know if I was renting a property or for myself, or if I was trying to, I was trying to buy a property or something, and I had some Foxtons brochures. So I had all these Foxtons brochures, and then I was going to go and speak to some letting agents to do this whole service accommodation stuff. But because I had all these Foxtons brochures, the guy thought I was working with Foxtons and they were giving me deals as well. So he made a comment referencing Foxtons, and somehow it just went really well, because in his head, he thought I was about to get all these deals from Foxtons because I had all these brochures from Foxtons. It was, I didn't do this on purpose, but it sort of just happened. But he clearly thought I was about to get all these flats from Foxtons, so he started showing me flats they had to rent out as service accommodation. It was a weird one, but that happened.
And you got something from them?
Honestly, I can't remember. This is the Paddington one.
Right.
We did get one that day, but I just can't remember now. It was so long ago, but we got one that day, but I just can't remember. But I just remember the agent being just really interested, because we had the Foxtons brochure. They were just a lot more interested for some weird reason, because it's like competitive and stuff. But that's something to consider. But this is really what you're trying to do here. This is really what you're trying to do. I would follow these steps. Take a weekend out, or Monday, Tuesday, and you can probably get 15 agents done. It doesn't take long. 15 agents, you can do one in a day, and you're just trying to get one. And this is the reason I went to Paddington, and I didn't just call agents in Paddington, because I knew if I spend one day and I get one agent on board, I've got unlimited deals and I'm done in Paddington. I never have to go to Paddington again in order to get another deal. And that's time well invested. So
you booked the views before you went to Paddington then?
Yeah, I booked the views before I went to Paddington. I had about 10, 15 viewings booked before I went to Paddington, and sort of went from there. Okay, so now we're going to cover marketing. I've got a bit of energy. Anyway, a bunch of different marketing. The first one is online travel agents, OTAs. Now, these are the main 5: AirBNB, Booking.com, Expedia, HomeAway, and TripAdvisor. Keep in mind, in my opinion, the most bookings, and I think most people will agree, come from Airbnb and Booking.com. Majority of the people who run service accommodation, the most bookings come from Airbnb and Booking.com. So when you're making your listings, it's good to be marketed in many places as possible, but what I would recommend is do Airbnb and Booking.com first, get listed on those, and then later you can come back to the other ones, because you're going to end up doing a lot of work for not that much return.
Hey, my name is Joseph, your support ambassador. I can help you.
Hi, Joseph. So I'm just getting in touch regarding. I wanted to start doing turning my Airbnb into a larger scale business. So my situation is I've been doing Airbnb for many years as an individual, just as an individual, just on my own property, right? And that's gone really, really well. And I want to turn this into a business model where I start getting in touch with other landlords and propose to manage their properties for them, doing the listings for them, or even renting their accommodation to then let it out on Airbnb. And so I've set up a limited company to do this as a business. And my question is, firstly, if I have to open up a new account to do this as a business.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
You cut out. So what I heard is that you want to open a new account for this as a business, right?
Yeah. Do I have to open a new account as a business?
Well, you can just use your account here in your BNB.
My individual account.
Yes.
Yeah, but the problem there is with taxes because I want to structure my business in a tax efficient way. See, I've got a job, I've got an income, and I don't want the Airbnb income to be taxed as personal income. So I want it to go into a company.
I understand. So let me just check the requirements. Okay, please stay on the line.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
please stay on the line. I need more to double check the details
Okay.
here on my end. Okay, hold on. Hello, Daniel. Thank you for patiently waiting.
Yep.
So, I already checked the details. So, based on my understanding, you wanted to be a co-host, right? And we have a co-host payment so that you can reach out to within Airbnb.
No, 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 no. The landlords are not on Airbnb. I'm gonna take control of the property in real life. They have nothing to do with Airbnb. Only I'm the Airbnb host. So if I add those details from that point, does the income from Airbnb go into my company? Okay, perfect. So I don't have to open a new Airbnb. I can just keep my own account, add the company details, and every booking that I do from that point goes into my company.
Yes, that is correct. And after that, it will be sending you also messages where you can check out your reference. Okay.
Perfect. And so all the reviews that I have on my account, the next guests are gonna be able to see those good reviews, even if I'm a company.
Yes.
Perfect. Excellent.
Okay. Is everything okay now? Is there anything else that I can help you with?
Yeah, the phone number on my account is wrong. It's not wrong. It's my old number, but I don't have access to it anymore because the provider shut down that number a long time ago, and I tried to get it back to get control of that number, but I couldn't. So I need to change also my number on my account. Is that possible?
Yes. You just need to go to your account and there's an option for you to change the number details.
I think I tried that a few months ago, and the problem was to change the number, they first have to send me a verification code on the old number, but I don't have the old number. That's why I want to change it.
I understand. Just to verify that we don't already have access to your account.
I've tried to contact them, and they say they don't want to do it. The reason they took that number away from me is because I didn't use it for a long time, and then automatically they will give it to somebody else.
Okay. So just a second with the details for that also.
Sure.
Daniel. Thank you for waiting. So, I just checked the details here on my end. You mentioned that the provider doesn't cooperate with you anymore, right?
Well, they won't change the phone number back. They won't give me back the old phone number. Yeah.
Uh-huh. In that case, Daniel, our option for now is that you can only use your email. That is your source of communication.
Okay. So that's fine. But is there no way from your system that I can change the number if I verify myself? I can send you my passport if that's what you need.
For now, Daniel, we don't have an option to do that. The verification. The second option that we have is that you can create a new account. However, you will start from the beginning again. So that's the scenario.
Yeah, I can't do that because I have all my reviews on this account.
I understand.
Okay, that's fine then. Well, thanks for trying.
Okay, Daniel. Thank you for calling Airbnb and have a great day. Okay.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Daniel, you may end now the call.
Oh, I actually just thought of another question.
Yes, go ahead.
This is about your policy. So, let's say I want to rent a property from a different landlord and put it up on Airbnb. But before I even have signed a contract with them, because when I sign this contract, I have to give them some money, I have to pay them the rent that they ask, and they give me the property. Would it be okay to list the property on Airbnb just to see if there's enough demand for it before I even know if I have it or not? Or is that against the policy?
The property. Okay,
So imagine I'm meeting with the landlord in 2 days and I found their property on a local website. They're advertising it as for rent, maybe for a student, for a working professional. And I can just take their pictures and make an Airbnb listing before I even speak with them, just to see if anybody will want to book that property on Airbnb. But I don't yet know if they'll give me the property. But if I see that there's demand, then when I go to speak with the landlord, then I know okay, we can do the deal. I can offer you this much, and then the listing becomes valid on Airbnb.
I'm sorry, you're cutting in and out. What's the last sentence?
Yeah, so I'd like to know if it's possible to put up a property that I don't have the keys for yet, and I'm not sure if I'll get them or not, because then I have to take some risk when I do this. I have to give the landlord some money I'm basically renting from somebody else. And before I pay them that rent, I want to know, is there going to be enough demand on Airbnb for this property? So I would love to be able to just make a preliminary booking with the photos that the landlord gives me, just to see if there's demand. And then obviously if they give me the keys and we do the deal, then I'll take better pictures, I'll update the listing. But just to do a preliminary listing, just to see if there's demand. Would that be possible?
I understand. Of course, you want to be sure that you're going to have demand on the properties, right?
Yeah.
So let me just check first, okay, so that I can give you the correct details of that.
Yeah.
Thank you for waiting, Daniel. So, in regards to your question, so for now, you can post first the listing. Yes, you may do that.
Perfect. And the last question, I promise this is the last one, I promise. If I have for my own property, I have pre-approval turned on, so not anybody can book it. I have to approve it. Are there any penalties for declining too many bookings? Because sometimes I get bookings from people with no photos or no reviews, and I get 3 or 4 of these bookings in a row. And I'm very selective with my guests. So I just wanted to ask if I'm getting penalized somehow, like if there's a score in the system and I'm losing points if I do that too much. Yeah. No, I'm talking about myself. If I cancel too many if I decline too many bookings, do I get a penalty? Okay. And sorry, I just thought about one last question. I promise it's the last one. So you mentioned co-host. You mentioned being a co-host earlier. Um, would I be able to open up a company account and then with my individual account, I'll just become the co-host, but the listing is owned by my company. Is that possible? Oh, perfect. I think that's what I'm looking for. Awesome. That's all good then. Perfect. Let me know if I can leave you a 5-star somewhere. This is very, very helpful. Appreciate it. You too. Bye.
feels alright. It feels alright. It feels alright. All I need is your love and your company. Right in this moment, you're all I see. I hear you calling, you're all I need. Feels like I'm falling. You like the air when I need to breathe. Before I was lost in the sea. For so long, what you make me believe. Make me believe. Make me believe. Is your love and your company. Right in this moment, you're all I see. I hear you calling, you're all I need. Feels like I'm falling. Is your love and your company. Right in this moment, you're all I see. I hear you calling, you're all I need. Feels like I'm falling. On your beach, put your hands to the sky. We lost in time dancing in the moonlight. When I'm with you, it still feels alright. It feels alright. It feels alright. All I need is your love and your company. Right in this moment, you're all I see. I hear you calling, you're all I need. Feels like I'm falling. lost in the sea. For so long, won't you make me believe? Make me believe. Make me believe. Is your love and your company? Right in this moment, you're all I see. I hear you calling, you're all I need. Feels like I'm falling. Is your love and your company? Right in this moment, you're all I see. I hear you calling, you're all I need. Feels like I'm falling. On a beach, put your hands to the sky. We lost in time, dancing in the moonlight.
This is also a major major upgrade considering that Anthony Joshua is not only an active heavyweight fighter and former world champion, he's also somebody who's more than capable of completely annihilating Jake Paul. Meanwhile, a Jake Paul win would not only skyrocket the YouTuber turned boxer's boxing career, this move may also lead to members of the boxing community taking him more seriously. Now, we're also not sure if Turkey Alashik is involved with this one, although he previously suggested that he has no problem funding and spending money on a Jake Paul fight against Anthony Joshua, if this is the only way to get Jake Paul out of boxing. This is also a major upgrade considering that Anthony Joshua is not only an active heavyweight fighter and former world champion,
This despicable guy paid the price for disrespecting the referee.
He's going to make a big mistake messing with Mark Goddard.
Just now, this madman even tried to strangle his opponent, who had already tapped out in defeat. The internet erupted in outrage. His opponent had clearly conceded, but he kept going. When the referee tried to save the victim, he not only refused to let go, but even treated the referee as an enemy. After 2 violent shoves, he directly grabbed the referee by the neck. What's even more infuriating is that he then celebrated his victory like a triumphant general, but soon his mood plummeted. He begged the referee not to punish him, his eyes full of pleading, but it was too late. His victory was revoked, and he received a ban. Do you think the referee team's decision was right? This despicable guy paid the price.